I'm not even gonna lie to you, man. If it wasn't for you guys, I would not be making this right now. I just go around the corner and buy it from a guy whose job it is to make these professionally for all of his life. But you hit content, YouTube. So comment, like, subscribe, hit the button, hit the notifications, and make sure you're caught up to date with all this shit that you never asked me to do. What up, English side of the internet? Today we make a scallion pancakes, which is one of my least favorite translations. Because what I'm actually gonna make is 葱油饼. 饼 means dough food that's vaguely flat, that is sometimes filled or not, either savory or sweet, served hot or at various temperatures. In this 饼, the word is the exact equivalent to the word pudding to the Victorian English. It means assortment of dishes, both hot or cold, sweet or savory, served steamed, baked, or fried. It's just a random word. But in this context, it means a lacy, beautiful, crispity, crackety, savory breakfast food. It's multi-layered, similar to a puff pastry. It's chewy, like a pizza. It's flavored deeply and heavily with a scallion oil combo. If you are from the middle of the country up, so the Riverlands and up, 葱油饼 would be in your childhood memories as one of like the breakfast food goats, served for like 2-3 kwai even to this day. And the best part is zero technical ability required. It's dead easy. First thing we're gonna do is make the dough. It is a 60% hydration dough with 5% fat of choice in it, 1.5 to 2% salt, that's your choice. And that's pretty much it. It can be leavened if you want it to be. I'm going to make my own mix of flour to create all-purpose flour out of cake flour and bread flour, but if you live in a country with all-purpose flour, just use all-purpose flour. In here goes 100 grams of cake flour, 300 grams of bread flour, seasoned with 8 grams, 20 grams of oil. It can be lard, which would make it taste delicious, or it can also be vegetable based. And we're gonna go in with hot water. So this is partially a scalded dough, or tangmian. You don't need it to be boiling, but you want it to be uncomfortable to touch. So right now this is still at like 50-ish. Once it hits 70, 80, I'll be like, nah, no. Roughly 70, 80 degrees, 240. So you can put this in a stand mixer if you want to. You can also do it by hand. I usually like to make doughs with a stand mixer because I can also do my other prep in the stand mixer as well. All right, this is the texture of dough that you want. Nice and stretchy, but still tender. This is gonna be divided, portioned into roughly 460-gram balls, covered in oil, and then left to rest, preferably overnight. The reason you rest it is when you give time overnight for the dough to fully hydrate and even out, protein strands that you've created through this violent kneading will have time to relax. And then your dough will become both elastic and plastic, i.e. it will stretch further and thinner. If you use freshly kneaded dough, it's kind of like after a person has had a fresh workout, you're all tense and pumped up, and your muscles don't really want to move as far as you would if you were in a relaxed state. So gluten, once again, is a protein structure, gliadin and glutenin, in the presence of water linking up to create a very long chain of proteins that give dough its stretch. That protein can be developed through mechanical means, kneading, chemical, acid and what have you, or through time, autolyse. When the dough hits water, it'll develop its own gluten, which is why we have no knead dough. This all being said, what that means for you is the kneading is not that important. Just get it into a cohesive ball it up, portion it, and throw it overnight to let it rest. This is also part of the reason why when you go to street-style stalls in Asia selling bing, you'll see that the vendors all have like little plastic balls of dough just hanging out in the corner, and they'll pull it out of a box and then make it fresh. That's why. They've rested it overnight. Here's one I made earlier that I brought from home. So, in this exact same dirty container, we're gonna make the paste that goes in between the dough to create those fluffy, beautiful layers. The recipe for this could not be more simple. Equal parts fat and flour with flavorings. And the flavorings can be as heavy or as light as you wish. We're gonna heat up some oil. 300 grams of fat, 300 grams of flow protein or cake flour because you don't want any stretchiness. At this point, I go in with my obscene amount of scallions. My personal preference is however much flour you've used, use roughly the same amount. Don't bother getting these super duper fine because you want to identify the texture of the scallions in the final product. There's no real recipe here. It's entirely up to you. My habit is to season with some chicken powder, some MSG, and some salt, 5-spice powder. And the reason I'm using 5-spice powder is because I don't have 13-spice powder right now. And 13-spice powder is like 5-spice powder, just with this many more. So this oil is stupid hot, but it's not hot enough for like finishing a Cantonese steamed fish. It's just hot enough to wilt down the scallions right before smoking. And the amount of scallions you use will perfectly cool down the oil just enough so that it's safe to go inside your mixer. I wish you could smell this right now. That smells like childhood. I would say that the average Asian childhood is pretty much just alliums and fat. We don't have many flavors, not like in the New World in North America where everything comes in 60 million trillion flavors, but nothing tastes of anything. That's the one thing I've always hated about North American food. They have so many flavors of everything, but nothing tastes like anything. Berry Blast, Thirst Punch, Fire Drink. And it just tastes like blue, like cinnamon throat. And it's just like a normal cinnamon candy with chili flavor in it. There's no cinnamon flavor. Now, this is the texture that I like to work with. It's actually still quite liquidous, moves around. But if you want it to be a little bit stiffer, you can always adjust it texture-wise. So don't stress out about this part of the recipe. Just understand that the mechanics of this part of the recipe are as follows. This is a fluid but not aqueous paste of flour particles, scallion, seasoning, and oil. It serves very similar function to butter inside of puff pastry. Croissant or millefeuille, anything that's laminated dough. So later when we go to roll this dough out, we're gonna smear the dough with this fat layer so that then when we fold it over itself in one of many ways, you'll end up with layers of dough sandwiching this heavy fat layer. And then when you go to cook it, the liquid in the dough will serve to puff up or souffle up the individual layers of dough and make it a very lacy, pull-apartable texture. So here we go. I have 4 doughs here. And with these 4 doughs, I'm gonna show you the 4 different ways to roll and fold up your songyobing. At the end of the day, no matter what way you use, remember they're all effective just so long as you get layers. Just get it lacy, fold it up a bunch of times, smash it down and roll it out. Here's the first way, or the easiest way. This is a dough that you roll with oil, not with flour. Take one of your doughs, flatten it out by hand. See how this dough is very obedient. It's spreading out and not really moving. You want to roll it out front and back or side to side. You want it to be about this thickness, just enough to see the counter. And from here, you make a cut in the center, whether with a knife or even your hand or a spoon, anything that's vaguely sharp in the center, and draw it out. Now your filling goes on and it gets spread out. And then from here, you want to grab one of the edges and start rolling it up. And then you want to take it and roll it all the way around. And you end up with a cone with a bunch of little layers inside. This is now a closed end. This is still an open end. With the sharp point of your zhuizhui in your palm, you take your thumb and just start shoving the edges in. Kind of like folding socks, the Asian way to fold socks. Now you have this little poo shape, then you flatten it down. And this is your first method. And then you let it relax until you're ready to roll it out a final time. So if you want to turn this into a business, this is where your prep stops. You stop here. All right, second one. Spread the piece of dough closest to you flat against the table. So almost smear it on like a sauce. You want a very flat, almost disappearing edge, and that's how you're gonna seal this parcel. Spread the dough out into roughly a rectangle shape. Roughly like this is fine. Yeah? If you've ever made white people Cinnabons, this will be immediately familiar to you. So you want to roll in from both sides, bottom up, top bottom, until you meet in the middle. Yeah? And what you'll end up with in cross section is this. Similar to making a palmier or a elephant ear cookie, which we've already talked about previously. Feel free to go back there and learn a little bit about the Shanghainese classic French pastries. Seal both edges, flip it over, pick it up, and then coax it out by holding both ends and sort of dangling it against the counter. At which point you want to take one end and start rolling it into the center, making sure that the seam is facing inwards. Wrap it up until you have a cute little snail. That's style number 2. Another one is you roll it out. This one is messier, but if you're not very tactile, you can do this one. Just fold it, fold it, fold it, fold it, or roll it up if you have the time, and then just snake it up, using the same making sure to get the seam on the inside. This last one is one I do not recommend, and I don't see a point in it, but a lot of people think it's the best way. I'm not necessarily sure. This one also requires much greasier hands. Roll it out, long thin triangles, spread your filling on top, cut it into strips, stack the strips, take both ends, twist until it looks like, well, a twist, and then you want to fold in both ends, one clockwise and one anti-clockwise until they meet in the middle, at which point you'll have a curly S. Then you take one end of the curly S and fold it on top of the other end of the curly S, then mush it down. Like if you've managed to bring like a big juicy northern Chinese girl home and you want to impress her in the morning with your bing, then yeah, maybe you can try it, but keep in mind that after you make it, you're gonna have to spend an hour cleaning up instead of having juicy, nasty sex. It's stupid. I don't recommend you do it. If you're interested, you need to find hobbies. But you know, I thought I'd show you anyways. So here we are at our half prep stage. We're almost done. These go for a little rest because they've just been molested, so they need some time to chill out so that when it comes time to roll, they're a little easier to roll. It's actually funny. On the Chinese side of the internet, on Bilibili, the running joke is that I don't know how to make Chinese food. And I think the reason is because I don't find anything particularly Chinese about this besides the fact that we had it as kids growing up in China. It's just very decent cooking techniques. And also, like, how Chinese I am depends on how awesome these are. Like, if they're really good, and I'm the most Chinese person ever. But, you know, if I don't do this, oh, you white boy. You. But anyways, let's get started, shall we? Throw it on your counter, flatten it out with your hands, and get to rolling. Now, don't bother getting it too thin. You don't want the shit inside to bust out. If you have a big flat pan, use that. If you're Mexican at home and have a comal, use a comal. You can also use a plancha, like I'm doing here in the restaurant. This is ideal, actually. All right, cool. On the flat top it goes. So the temperature that you want is 200 degrees centigrade if you're going thin, and if you've rolled it thick, then 150. Anywhere between there, depending on the thickness. Exact same with all the other ones. Just dip it in some fat, get it on the board, and start rolling it out. All right. If it feels a little bit dry, feel free to give it a little bit more fat. But the fat is really up to you. There's so much fat in this already. You're just adding fat at this point for texture purposes, not for non-stick purposes. That's the amount of GVD that I like, and that happened at 75 centigrade. So if you like a yellow GVD like this, you want it at $1.50, which is closer to the edge of my plancha here. Now, word of warning and word to the wise, this one has the filling goddamn everywhere. So I recommend that you cook it at a lower temperature lest you burn the spices and the onions inside. So you want to cook this at 150 maximum. Also, don't bother rolling this out too thin or you're gonna smash out all the hard work that you went through to get the filling inside. So this is thin enough. And you wanna park it right here in the baby corner. Once it's golden brown on both sides, there's a very good chance that the inside is done. You can temp it if you want to and pull it at 80-90 degrees, but it's not necessary. Once it's golden on both sides, something this thin will be cooked in the middle. So chill, right? The traditional way to serve this is right now when it's crispy, if you eat it like this, it'll be delicious, but it won't be traditional. What you wanna do is grab it and put it in a plastic bag and let it steam for about 10, 30 seconds, 20 seconds until the edges go slightly soggy. Smell the bag, and then you ask for 2 eggs, maybe some doujiao, and you fuck off to work. That is the smell of childhood. Wow. The smell of a cheap plastic bag with a bomb of scallion oil and lacy pastry in the middle. Grab a little corner, and you get a perfect bite of crispy outside and stretchy inside. Ah. Oh my God, so good. Now this is the messy one, the one that's just made of little strips and it pulls apart like this, which is better for snacking on, but not necessarily strong enough for breakfast. A few ingredients, a little bit of your time, and if you're gonna make Cinnabons, may I please insist that you try this instead. It's more of a meal. Give this one a shot. It's easier than all the other recipes. And I guarantee you, you're gonna love what you come up with no matter what shape and size they are. And let me know what else you wanna see down in the comment section below. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe. It helps us out a lot. Talk often, talk soon. Take care, guys. Bye-bye. All right, I'm gonna, ow, ow, ow. Damn, that is stupid hot. I have a boo-boo. Tongue, tongue. See? Chefs don't have asbestos hands. We're sensitive creatures.